Thank you everybody for coming. It's my great pleasure to introduce tonight Anthony Clavane, the author of Does Your Rabbi Know You're Here? For those of you who haven't read it, it's an excellent chronicle on the Jewish involvement in the sport of football over the past 100 or so years in Britain, and he structures it excellently around a selection of wonderfully illustrated characters who were all brought up within Jewish backgrounds, all have Judaism as part of their heritage, and yes, so perhaps I'll hand it over to him just to say a few words about the text.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for the introduction. Was you know, we're going to talk about Jewish football, so in 5 minutes' time we'll all say goodbye. And that's the kind of the myth about Jewish football. In fact, when my publisher, who had enjoyed my first book, Promised Land, which is about Leeds United, about Leeds, about Jews in Leeds, about writers in Leeds, about everything, he said, why don't you do a book about Jews in football, not just Leeds, Tottenham, Arsenal, all over the country. And I said, well, it'll be the shortest book ever written. So, you know, I have to get my retaliation in first, and I have to make these jokes before other people do, because, let's face it, the idea of Jews playing sport, and this has been a myth that's gone on throughout history, the idea of Jews playing sport has been seen to be a funny idea at best. And yet, this book runs to 270 pages, and therefore, how come I managed to find 270 pages of stories about Jews in football? So the idea that I was banned from playing football, that Jews aren't supposed to be into football or sport or physical activity or strong or tough. You know, look at you, physically, not you, sorry Simon, look at you, the stereotype of a Jew. Physically, you're not, you can't play football, you're not tough, you're not strong, you won't survive, it's a man's game, it's not a game for a Jew, blah, blah, blah. It's as if the Jews have got minds and not bodies, you know, and that's what always I found bizarre, because then we were obsessed with it, playing it all the time, talking about it. I think these myths, these stereotypes, these cliches are things that I enjoy taking on by historical research and talking to people who have been involved, and I like the idea of a hidden history, and a history that has never been talked about before, because there's never actually been a book about Jews in football.
Your previous book, I don't know if anybody's read it, Promised Land, Anthony's first book, also explored the themes of the Jewish community and Leeds United. So writing this book after that, isn't it covering old ground? How were you able to reinvent the subject matter or rediscover it?
Yeah, the reason it's new ground is because it's not just Leeds United. So, for example, you can go to Swindon and you can find one of their legends, Harry Morris, from the 1920s, their top goal scorer, scored about 300 goals in 7 seasons. Swindon, of all places. You can go to Leyton Orient, a small club, but it's had so many Jewish people involved in it. And obviously Tottenham, everyone thinks Tottenham's a Jewish club, or Arsenal. But you can go all over the country. Wherever there are Jews, there are Jews playing football, whether it's amateur football or professional football. And I just wanted to not cover the same ground, but extend the ground. Having said that, on the cover of the book is a Leeds United player, Leslie Goldberg. This is from the 1940s. I love the old Leeds United strip, by the way. So the idea that you've got a Goldberg, a Jew, playing for Leeds United, and then you sort of take that and say, well, has Arsenal ever had Jewish players? You know, have Manchester United, Manchester City? And yes, they have. Not only have they had Jewish players, they've had a huge Jewish fan base in Manchester, a huge Jewish fan base in North London, and Jewish fan bases all over the country, wherever there are Jewish communities. But I feel very strongly about the idea that we're a very diverse country, and we've always had diverse influences. And Leeds United, you know, have had diverse influences, but so have so many other clubs. I think it's good to see these communities positively integrated into British society, mainly through, I believe, through football.
First league title in a decade, and that was most convincing from Schechter. 3-1, the Israelis now lead in Austria.
So, Jews and football. You've said that the introduction to the book, and on paper, the two aren't very compatible. And while you were looking over the various protagonists that you feature in the book, I mean, from the brawn Mark Lazarus, the Starker that you call him,
yeah,
the well-built guy who'd be ready to get into a fight, to some you like Lou Grade. Was there anything that you came across, any specific characteristics or themes that unites all of these Jewish characters, something that they all have in common?
What connects them to, say, I don't know, let's face it, David Dean at Arsenal, Leslie Silver, you know, at Leeds United, Manny Cousins, what connects them with the Mark Lazaruses is, I believe, this outsider mentality. And I think that there's an outsider mentality running through a lot of Jewish involvement in sport. So I think the drive and the determination, the hunger to prove people wrong, to prove a point, is actually what unites these characters. I did think that Mark Lazarus, when he scored the winning goal for QPR in the 1968 League Cup final after they were 2-0 down, it was a great moment because you know, he would go to the crowd, he'd do a lap of honour, he'd shake people by the hand. It was almost as if he was saying, look, you know, I'm Jewish, I'm here, I've done it. The dreams and the reality, I think that brings out so much humour. This is a serious book in a way, but it's also a book of entertaining stories, very funny characters. So I wanted to get that humour out as much as possible.
Absolutely, and some of the funniest stories are from people like One-Armed Lou, who I think on the in the lead up to an FA Cup final heard some sirens, had all these tickets, black market tickets, and heard some police coming outside.
And he flushed them down the loo, and then he realised the police were going into another flat.
Thanks very much. So if we offer it open to the floor, does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Anthony?
You sir had a question?
Yeah, I think the perception of Tottenham is that it's the most Jewish club.
Yeah.
So in two parts, do you feel that's justified? And if so, where did it come from?
Where it came from was the East End Jews who came from Lithuania and Eastern Europe. They were driven out of Russia because of the pogroms in the late 19th century. They congregated in the East End mainly. So the East End, which is where we talked about these characters who support Tottenham come from. And the reason they didn't support West Ham, because you think, well, who's the club in London closest to the East End? Obviously West Ham United. I discovered well, 2 or 3 theories for this. On a Saturday, when Jews weren't allowed to, you know, use money to get on public transport, and at the time there was this trams that would take you from the East End of London to White Hart Lane. You'd get there quicker than if you went to West Ham. Second reason was that Tottenham won the FA Cup in I think 1920 or 21. They were a team that were going places, that were, you know, they were one of the best teams. The third reason is because they had a lot of Jewish players, and I discovered in this book you know, about 7 or 8 Tottenham Jewish players who played during the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. Now this is before, you know, you get into the present day and you get Israeli players, maybe Rosenthal, you know, the famous miss that where he hits the bar, that kind of thing. But Tottenham had a history of Jewish players, and the first ever Jewish manager, David Pleat, and you know, Jewish fans like Morris Keston and all those people that I mentioned in the book. Had an emotional attachment to Tottenham for these 3 reasons. But to be honest, my main idea, I'll finish on this, is what I'm really interested in is this hidden history of almost invisible Jews, you know, and why were they invisible, why were they hidden, and why, and let's finish on a positive note, why I think today they get into mainstream society and how they become accepted and they feel a sense of belonging, in the way I felt a sense of belonging to Leeds United. And that gave me I think my sense of pride about being, you know, Leeds and being Leeds United, and still to this day, it's still my big connection. You know, I am Jewish, but in a way, my main religion is Leeds United.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you very much, and Anthony Clavane.
Thank you. Bobby Fischer then played for Orient, and his mum was called Rose, and this is what Bobby said. My mum came to every home game. After one match in which I'd been booked, someone came running in going, "Fish, your mum's attacking the referee." So I went to see my mum at the main gates. She was there with the ref behind 2 linesmen, and my mum with an umbrella was trying to hit the ref. She looks at me and says, "This bastard booked you. You didn't foul him." And I go, "Mom, come on."